Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the program. So glad you are here. A lot of you are new to the program, so grateful that you would come back and give me another shot. Thanks for being here. Hey, I just noticed a really fun comment in the comments before we get going. Gavin, enjoy seeing my former coworker at Arlington County PD, Sean McDonough, on your show. Please tell him hello from E104 Dispatcher. Deirdre, that is really fun for you to for that comment. I just love it. And Deirdre actually just did for us something that I ask everybody to do, just so that you know, or just so I know that your comment is directed at me. Please go ahead and just put GF in your comment, and that way I will know it is from or for me rather than just a just chat banter amongst all of y'all in the live chat. All right, today we are continuing our coverage of the death of MICA Miller. MICA died on April 27th, 2024 officially. It has been ruled that she did it at her own hand. She did it after what appears to be a long and embattled marriage to Pastor John Paul J.P. Miller at Solid Rock Church up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The reason for our video today is because there is a new document that has come out thanks in large part to Fitz News. Fitz News is a local to Myrtle Beach independent news source. I work for a company very similar to this called EYT Media, where we do we call it hyper local news, right? I think they do a pretty darn good job at Fitz News. They are definitely doing a good job at covering this case, and they have uncovered a lot of documents by going to the courthouse and getting those those documents. So the document that we have for you today is from Fitz News, and I want to give them that credit. Thank you very much for your hard work over there at Fitz News. Okay, so why don't we just kind of dig into it? Let's see. You know what I didn't prepare was a photo of Allison Williams, formerly Allison Miller. I put her picture on the thumbnail of this video, but she is the first wife of Pastor Miller and the mother of 4 of his 5 children. Is the way I understand it is that his first child was born out of wedlock, which we all have our personal ethics and our personal morals, right? But this is a guy who fancies himself a pastor. So it does seem like Pastor Miller has stumbled along the way. I don't know why people continue to follow him. Certainly you can forgive him, but why continue to follow him, I don't know. But anyway, Allison is the mother of 4 of Pastor Miller's 5 children. They divorced back in 2015 at a time when Pastor Miller was having an affair with MICA. And subsequently, he and MICA were married. And then that marriage was headed for divorce. They were separated at the time of MICA Miller's death. I think that's a pretty good summary. So let's just dive into the document here. This is in Horry County, South Carolina, Allison Williams v. John Paul Miller. This is her complaint. Plaintiff, complaining of the defendant herein, respectfully alleges the following. And then the first part just establishes that the court has jurisdiction. It just establishes jurisdiction. So I'm just going to kind of skip over that. Okay. The second part has to do with they had a mediation clause in their divorce decree. Let's just go ahead and dig into it. Pursuant to parties' prior final order filed October 30th, 2015, prior to the parties filing an action seeking to modify any provision of the final order related to the minor children, there are 4 children 2 of which have grown up, are emancipated. There are now 2 minor children left. Okay. They must first submit those issues to mediation. Plaintiff asserts that based upon the exigent circumstances that currently exist and the possible imminent danger and harm that could be caused to the minor children, it is not in their best interest to delay these matters from being addressed by the court on an expedited basis, and good cause exists for the court to waive this requirement. Therefore, based upon the totality of the facts and circumstances, plaintiff alleges good cause exists for the court to issue an order waiving the pre-filing mediation clause in the parties' prior final order, and request the court order or issue such an order both pendente lite and permanently. Pendente lite means during litigation. I talked to my friend who's a lawyer this morning, like, why do you do this with Latin? And, and he's like, it makes us sound smart. So at least he was honest with me. So pendente lite means during this litigation. So we want this order now and permanently. We don't want to do any more mediation. Okay, the first cause of action is a modification of child custody psychological evaluation. All right, pursuant to the parties' prior final order filed on October 30th, 2015, they currently share joint custody of the minor children, with plaintiff being designated as the primary custodial parent and defendant being designated as the secondary custodial parent. Further, the minor children reside with plaintiff, and the defendant has periods of periodic visitation with the minor children. That does seem, I don't know, the way that it's put there kind of seems to me like there isn't scheduled time where he takes the children, but I might be reading that wrong or understanding it incorrectly. Okay, as a result of the joint custodial designation inter alia, so among other things, the parties have a duty to consult with each other with respect to major decisions concerning the minor children, and if they disagree, plaintiff has the final decision-making authority. Plaintiff alleges that since the entry of the parties' final order filed on October 30th, 2015, there has been a material and substantial change in circumstance, warranting modification of the parties' prior final order pertaining to inter alia custody and visitation. Again, pertaining to, among other things, custody and visitation. Plaintiff alleges that since the entry of the parties' prior final order, defendant has exhibited increased unstable behaviors, failed to provide a safe and stable environment for the minor children during his periods of visitation, and has both espoused and involved the minor children in incidents of domestic dispute and discord, which have been traumatic to the minor children and not in their best interest. Guys, you guys probably all know this. Kimberly and I took a page from our parents. I was going to say my parents, but no, it's her parents as well. And that is, there are disagreements and discord in a marriage. That does happen, especially over a long marriage, right? Actually, it seems to me like it happens mostly in the beginning, and as the longer it gets, the less there is. But my parents and Kimberly's parents never did that in front of us, ever. Like, I remember one time in my entire life where my mom was upset with my dad in front of us. And I think, it was before we moved to California. I was probably 7 years old. They never do that. And so Kimberly and I have made the same, like, on purpose decision. We do not have disagreements. We do not have fights. We do not have arguments in front of the children, period. And because it is in their best interest to not witness grown-up arguments, right? Now, fortunately for me, I am married to a saint of a woman, and we hardly ever, that has hardly ever happened. I can't remember the last time we have done that. But what she is saying, what Allison is saying here, is that the children have been involved, not only exposed, like I was saying, like, don't expose your children to this domestic discord. They have been involved in incidents of domestic dispute and discord, which have been traumatic to the minor children and not in their best interest. Plaintiff further alleges that since the entry of the parties' prior final order, it appears as though defendant's mental health has increasingly deteriorated, and he has exhibited behavioral patterns that are erratic and irrational. At times, he has foregone his designated periods of visitation. Okay, so he does have designated times. But at times, he has foregone his designated periods of visitation based upon his own assertions of not being, not being mentally well enough for the children to be in his care. If she has recordings of that, of him admitting that, hey, I'm not mentally stable enough or mentally well enough for the kids to be around me right now, I think that this is going to be a short litigation. Okay. In addition, where's my cursor? There we are. Where's my cursor? There we go. Okay. In addition to the foregoing, since the entry of the parties' prior final order, the defendant has used the joint custodial designation of the parties, i.e., duty to consult regarding the children, as a mechanism to harass, threaten, and control the plaintiff. Now, does this sound familiar to you guys? I mean, we know that MICA was being followed by a private investigator. She had a tracker on her car. He would show up and have arguments with her or confrontations with her. We know that he took her car, things like that. So, I mean, it does seem to be in Pastor Miller's, his modus operandi, that this is what he does to the women in his life. As a result, the parties are not able to effectively communicate or co-parent in a manner necessary to share joint custody of the minor children. And emotional health and plaintiff alleges it would be detrimental to the safety, welfare, and emotional health of both the plaintiff and the minor children to continue sharing joint custody. She wants full custody, obviously. Therefore, plaintiff is requesting the court issue an order granting plaintiff sole custody of the minor children, both during litigation and permanently. Plaintiff further alleges that based upon information and belief that since the entry of the parties' prior final order, despite his representations otherwise, defendant has failed to seek treatment for his deviant, I'm going to leave that word out, addictions and behaviors. You guys can read that, obviously, right? His deviant addictions and behaviors, which he admittedly confessed to both the plaintiff and former elders of the church. See former affidavit of plaintiff filed with the court. Okay. Based upon information and belief, defendant has continued to engage in these deviant behaviors and has exposed the parties' minor children to an immoral and unsafe environment. Yeah, I mean, it's alleged that Pastor Miller has had different paramours along the way, one of which was MICA at one time, right, when the children were very little. But he's had multiple paramours along the way, and I think the complaint here is that as he does these things, the children, he does it in plain view of the children. And I don't know. Everybody has their own morality. I think that is immoral to do that. Everybody has their own morality, but the kicker here is that he is a pastor of a church. And I think that makes it a little more beyond, right? A little extra that he'd be doing these things. Okay, in addition to the foregoing, defendant has exposed the minor children to his adulterous misconduct with his paramour and repeatedly involved both the plaintiff and minor children in his marital difficulties. Plaintiff further contends that since the entry of the parties' prior final order, the current wife of defendant, MICA Miller, was recently found deceased. They're very careful in these paragraphs, guys. The tragic facts and circumstances of which have become a major focus of social media, local and national news. Against the objections of plaintiff, the defendant has discussed this matter with the children, and plaintiff believes, given the totality of the circumstances, placing the children in the care of the defendant would place them in imminent danger and not be in their best interest. Plaintiff further alleges that prior to the death of MICA Miller, she confided in plaintiff, sharing intimate details regarding the behaviors of defendant and concerns regarding the safety of the minor children while in the care of the defendant. Plaintiff contends that until the time of MICA Miller's death, she provided a, quote, safety net, close quote, for the children during their periods of visitation with defendant. And based upon her recent tragic death, that is no longer possible. I think that is an interesting observation. I mean, I know that there are a lot of people that live, that are in divorced situations. Let me look something up real quick. Okay. Yeah, I got it. A lot of people live in these kinds of situations where there are split families, they're remarried, and those sorts of things. And I know personally of at least, I know personally of one where the ex-spouse felt like their child was safe in the home of their former spouse because of the new spouse. Like there was that safety net, as Allison puts it in her lawsuit here. So I don't know. I feel like if I feel that if my ex-spouse were a danger, it wouldn't matter what if there was a safety net or not, that person would be a danger. But apparently that's the way Allison felt. Okay. Okay, so based upon her recent tragic death, that is no longer possible. Based upon the foregoing, plaintiff alleges that until such time as the defendant undergoes a full and complete, they want a full and complete psychological and parental fitness evaluation and follows all recommendations resulting therefrom, and a guardian ad litem, that's the basically ad litem means for the suit. Usually that means a guardian to watch over during this lawsuit so that he isn't alone with his children, I think is how I understand that. Okay, and it's actually guardian ad litem. So let me start over. And a guardian ad litem can be appointed to investigate this matter and protect the best interest of the minor children. The defendant's periods of visitation and contact with the minor children should be suspended to protect the best interests of the minor children, and requests the court issue an order granting this relief both during the litigation and permanently. So she wants full custody. She wants him to have no contact with their children, and she wants it to be permanent. Based upon the foregoing, plaintiff contends it would be in the best interest of the minor children to inter alia, among other things, modify the custody and visitation provisions of the parties' prior final order by granting plaintiff sole custody of the party's minor children and suspending any further contact and or visitation between the minor children and defendant, pending the defendant undergoing a full and complete psychological and parental fitness evaluation and following all recommendations resulting therefrom, both during litigation and permanently. They say it twice. Okay. Let me just check to see what you guys are saying before we move on. Kari or Carrie Svensson says, Gavin, is it just me or do both women look similar? Yeah, Allison and MICA are like doppelgangers to me. This Pastor Miller has a type for sure. I'm sorry to say this so bluntly and maybe so crassly. It feels like he traded in his older model for a newer model. And once that newer model became an older model, it looks like he wanted to trade her in too. That's the way it feels like for me. Yeah, both of those women look so similar to one another. It's just absolutely crazy. GF, wish volume was louder. Yeah, I can't put it up any louder, otherwise it clips. Sorry about that, Missy. Deidre says, GF, is it possible that she was buying a gun for protection and was intercepted by her father-in-law who forced her to write the note and he killed her? Okay, listen. I have been I've been apprehensive about diving into theories like that. And the reason I think I've been apprehensive isn't because they're not valid theories and valid discussions. The issue for me has been that so many crazy people are out there talking about it that it tends to take the credibility away from it. I saw the video where somebody had not altered, but you guys know what I mean, had changed the audio, had turned up different frequencies and different loudness of things like that. And it does sound like during the call that Micah Miller made to 911 that somebody is in the background saying Micah Miller. So it is possible that there was somebody there. But it is equally as possible, I think, that somebody in the call center said her name and it was picked up by the microphone, seeing her caller ID or something like that. So I don't know. Is it possible that she was going to protect herself? Yeah, absolutely. Is it probable? For me at this point, it's kind of 50-50. I don't know. And sorry to be a fence sitter on that one, but I really don't. I'm not sure. Ellie says, Gavin, Allison seems to be a stand-up woman better than him. Everything that I've read about her does seem to be that way. Jeff, oh, you said it twice. All right, gotcha. All right, let's go back over. Let's see, did I clear out all the comments on all these screens? I think so. All right, let's go back to Acrobat. We will clear it on this screen too. Okay, second cause of action. Appointment of a guardian ad litem. Plaintiff realleges the proceeding. Plaintiff alleges in the event defendant contests custody, a guardian ad litem should be appointed to investigate this matter and protect the best interests of the minor children, with defendant being solely responsible for the cost, both pendente lite, which means during the litigation, and permanently. So, I think because as we read in the third cause of action here, it appears that the good pastor is making a lot of money, and so I think that Allison does not want to be on the hook for kind of the drama unfolding in his life. He should be on the hook for the drama unfolding in his life, I guess is how I read that. Okay, third cause of action, modification of alimony and child support. Plaintiff alleges, blah, blah, blah. Plaintiff alleges, man, I've got a sneeze coming on, guys. Man, excuse me. Thank you. All right. Because I know some of you said bless you, so thank you for that. Plaintiff alleges upon information and belief that since the entry of the parties' final orders pertaining to alimony and child support, there has been a substantial change in circumstances warranting a modification. Based upon information and belief, defendant has an income far greater than the amount he set forth in his sworn financial declaration filed with the court during the parties' prior proceedings, and that since the entry of the parties' prior final orders pertaining to alimony and child support, the income of defendant has substantially increased. Though I would argue with everything that's going on right now, it has substantially decreased. But okay. Plaintiff requests an order from the court modifying the child support obligation of defendant to reflect the current earnings of the parties and appropriate healthcare expenses for the minor children pursuant to South Carolina child support guidelines, and that any such modification be retroactive to the filing of this action, probably because they know that his income is going back down, both during the litigation and permanently. Plaintiff further alleges that since the entry of the parties' prior final order, in addition to defendant having a substantial increase in earnings, the monthly expenses of both plaintiff and the minor children have increased, and based upon her financial need and the defendant's ability to pay, she is entitled to an increase in alimony and requests the court issue an order for the same, both during litigation and permanently. Okay, so the fourth cause of action has to do with restraining orders. All right, plaintiff seeking an order from the court prohibiting defendant from degrading plaintiff while in the presence of the minor children or allowing any third party to do the same, both during litigation and permanently. Plaintiff is seeking an order from the court prohibiting defendant from discussing this litigation or any other legal proceeding involving defendant while in the presence of the minor children. I think they are looking ahead to the future and seeing that there are some lawsuits that are going to be coming down to the pastor. Let's see. While in the presence of the minor children or allowing any third party to do so, both during litigation and permanently, plaintiff is seeking an order from the court restraining defendant from exposing the minor children to dangerous, immoral, or unhealthy environments, the abuse of alcohol, illegal drugs, smoking, abuse of prescription medications. I think this is an allegation that these things are happening in the home of the good pastor. Abuse of alcohol, illegal drugs, smoking, I'm guessing tobacco, and the abuse of prescription medications, both during the litigation and permanently. Plaintiff is seeking an order from the court restraining defendant from exposing the children to their paternal grandfather, Wayne Miller, in any capacity, both pendente lite and permanently, both during this litigation. You guys know the whole story of Mr. Miller, also, as I understand, a good pastor. Mr. Wayne Miller has all sorts of problems, including allegations of SA toward children in Pakistan. Like, you cannot make this up. So she wants, I don't want my children with my ex-husband. I don't want, if there's a guardian, I don't want him to be around him using alcohol, drugs, prescription meds. And by the way, I don't want them anywhere near his father. That's pretty bold, and I think it's right as well. Plaintiff is seeking an order from the court preventing defendant from coming about her residence, place of employment, or person. Does this sound familiar? Plaintiff is seeking an order from the court preventing defendant from coming about her residence, place of employment, or person, and from abusing, harming, harassing, communicating, threatening, or otherwise interfering with plaintiff or members of her family in any manner whatsoever, except in regards to the minor children in the manner specifically requested herein, including in person, electronically, or through third parties, both during litigation and permanently. Guys, this is exactly the behavior. Exactly the behavior. I don't even need to tell you. This is his behavior. This is what he did to MICA leading up to her death. And while I am starting to teeter a little bit on whether or not MICA did it to herself, like I was convinced that she had, but now I'm kind of teetering on this, especially considering there is a video that MICA's sister put on Twitter that talks about there being bruising on her body, and she talked to the medical examiner who said, "What bruising? I didn't see any bruising." And then she said that she asked the medical examiner, "Well, is it possible that MICA was bruised as she was removed from the area she was found in?" And the medical examiner rightly said, "No, not after the heart stops beating." So, there's no vital reaction is what we call that. So now there are bruises on MICA. Or there are alleged bruises on MICA, and the medical examiner did not show that in his or her report. And I guess I'm just a little bit jaded by other medical examiners that do lousy work, i.e., Diane Verdes in Erie County with the case of Amanda Winkowski, Marlon Osborne in Philadelphia County in the case of Amanda Winkowski, and then I can't remember her name in Hennepin County in Minnesota with the case of David Elmquist. There are so many things that are missing in the report that I just don't believe medical examiners on their face. I now require proof. There are just too many really bad medical examiners, really bad pathologists, I guess. So anyway, this is in light of that, I am teetering. But even not talking about whether or not JP Miller caused, like directly or through a third party, caused the death of MICA Miller, I think he's responsible for her death for sure, based on this kind of abuse, right? This kind of behavior, stalking her, harassing her, showing up, putting trackers on her, confronting her. And he's apparently doing that with Allison Miller as well. And I understand that he did it with MICA's family as well. I mean, when at the funeral that they had at Solid Rock, he talked about running into MICA's sister and his and children. And that isn't what happened. He didn't run into them. He stalked them. He found them. He confronted them. That is apparently his modus operandi. That is just the way he is. So I'm glad that this has been put into this lawsuit by Mrs. Williams or Ms. Williams. Okay. Plaintiff is further seeking an order from the court requiring any communications between the parties be solely limited to issues concerning the minor children and only occur through the Our Family Wizard parenting application. Further issuing an order strictly prohibiting any other form of contact, including but not limited to electronically, in person, or through third parties, both pendente lite and permanently. And she keeps on adding in, where am I? There I am. Through third parties. I think this is a way that a lot of people in these kinds of situations try to get around court orders. They don't talk to their former spouse, or they don't talk to the person against whom they have a restraining order. Just somebody else does, right? So Allison's attorney is doing a good job putting that clause in. Okay. Third cause of action. I think we just did the fourth cause of action. So this would be the fifth cause of action. Plaintiff alleges, blah, blah, blah. Plaintiff alleges that based upon the egregious misconduct of defendant, She has been forced to retain legal counsel and incur an exorbitant amount of legal fees and costs, resulting in a financial hardship to ensure the minor children are adequately protected. Plaintiff further alleges that based upon information and belief, defendant is in a far superior financial position than plaintiff, and that absent defendant being required to pay the legal fees and costs of plaintiff, both current and future, she will be prejudiced and experience financial hardship. Further, the defendant has the financial resources to pay both his fees and costs and those of plaintiff, both pendente lite, which again, during litigation, I don't know why they do that, and permanently. Therefore, plaintiff is seeking an order from the court requiring defendant to pay her attorney's fees and costs, both during litigation and permanently. Wherefore, the plaintiff prays this honorable court addresses the matters alleged herein and issue an order granting the relief sought, together with any such other and further relief this court may deem just and proper. The plaintiff further requests that all other provisions set forth in the parties' prior final orders, not otherwise requested to be modified herein, remain in full force and effect. And then that is the law firm. Now, there are a couple of other, there's the certification. This might be the, oh no, this is just more paperwork. This is the cover sheet. Yeah, I don't think that, okay. And then this would be the order that they're asking. Oh no, this is the plaintiff, swearing, blah, 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 verifies that the complaint allegations are true, that sort of thing. I'm wondering, all right, and that's a summons. We don't really need to go through the summons. What is this one? Yeah. I think, yeah, this is just supporting information. I don't think we need to go through that. Okay. We've made it through. Let's see if, see what you guys are saying. Gavin, regardless of the final act, John Paul drove her to it. Yep, I agree with you completely, Mooney. And by the way, I just want to tell everybody, I just want to put her on a pedestal. Mooney is the very first member of my channel. She has been supporting me forever on my YouTube journey, and I love it when she drops in. Mooney, thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Deidre adds, Gavin, my earlier theory was based on her appointments and plans for the future up until the moment she supposedly did that to herself. I haven't heard theories out there. Behavior isn't congruent with that. So there are a couple things here, and I try to remain, I'm not, but I try to remain unbiased on these things. I'm obviously not. But people who unalive themselves, who take their own lives, frequently do things like filling up the gas tank and paying the medical bills, and they make plans for vacations because, and again, I'm a layperson. I'm not a expert at this by any means, but typically speaking, at least in my experience, in my observational experience, when somebody does that to themselves, it is spur of the moment. It is hardly ever planned. I can think of one person in my life where it was planned, and it was there was mental illness involved there. So her behavior is incongruent with what ultimately happened, but to me that isn't really an indication that she didn't do it. I guess that's what I'm saying, Deidre. But yeah, your previous comment about, is it possible that she was trying to get some type of protection? Yeah. And MICA, as I understand it, was not only well armed, but well trained. Like she was a person of that ilk. That's a person after my own heart, somebody who knows firearms, who uses firearms, who trains with them. She was well trained and well prepared, as I understand it. So that's actually one of the reasons that I kind of lean toward her doing it to herself, because if she had a firearm in her hand, she was well trained on how to use it. So I think she could have defended herself against somebody, unless it was a mental and emotional persuasion that made her do it, or some kind of blackmail that made her do it, right? But either way, getting back to Mooney's comment, I think that J.P. Miller drove her to it, 100%. Like he may not be legally responsible for her death. He may, but he may not be legally responsible for death. But I think, civilly speaking, he's going to have a hard time defending himself against a wrongful death lawsuit. Deidre, your next comment, thank you for asking that, because the support that you guys give me on my channel is deeply appreciated and goes toward me living my dream of being a full-time YouTuber. If you go to my website, gavinfish.com, there is a support button. And on support, there are a lot of different ways that you can support me, including becoming a patron, doing super chats and super stickers, being a member. There's also a tip jar where you can just support me that way. And then obviously watching my videos, liking, sharing, and subscribing is a very good way to support me. And then I bring this up frequently, but my mods, Jamie and Autumn, they do this voluntarily. And so there is a button right here where you can click the button and you can support my mods by buying them a coffee. And I would love it if you would do that. Another way to support me is to join the Fish Tank over here on Facebook. Man, we're a growing little community. We're at 1,300 members. Autumn and Jamie, my moderators, also are admins of this group, and we like to chit chat about things. And so please join us over there if you are on Facebook. Thank you very much for that question, Deidre. Is there anything else before we go? Let me just oh my goodness, there are a couple super chats that I completely missed. Let's get to these. Cosmic Shy, good to see you, and thank you. Gave the Shiba dog with sparkles in his eyes, saying my hero. Thank you very much. And then JK gave a super chat. Thank you very much, JK. Remember, law enforcement and medical examiner are often motivated to write off a suspicious death as self-induced death because their crime rate is shown as lower equals more funding. Yes, and JK, thank you for bringing that up, because ever since I read Freakonomics, however many years ago that was, 15, 20 years ago, I am a big believer in incentives. Like, the human creature, including me, including you, we all react to incentives, or what we call disincentives, but they're also incentives to either do something or not do something, right? And medical examiners, offices, law enforcement officers, they are not exempt from those kinds of incentives. And that is a very, very good point. And then there's also, like, from the medical examiner point of view, guys, there's also the whole idea that there are just people that are human that make errors. That, a medical examiner might do 6 or 7 autopsies in a single day. And they take, like, audio notes that are then transcribed, that are then help them turn into a report. By the time they write that report, oftentimes they don't even remember the actual examination. So there is the human error factor as well. All right, guys. So thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for joining me today. Thank you for keeping MICA Miller and the Allison Williams and her children in your thoughts. Thanks for keeping this case alive. I think that it will eventually help Micah's family to bring a strong wrongful death lawsuit against Pastor Miller, who we see here, who I think is responsible. I've already said this a million times, but he definitely is responsible. If she did it to herself, he's also responsible. Okay. With that, I will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being here. I will see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.